The failure of the Atari 5200 is well documented. Do a search right here on YouTube. You'll find videos on bad business decisions, design flaws, the challenges of using this nearly 45-year-old equipment today. Some of those videos are by me, but it's a mistake to only focus on the negative and ignore the games. Hi, I'm Paul, and this is Indie Pop Productions, pop culture from an independent point of view. Today, we're going to continue our series celebrating the games of the 5200. Now, there were only 69 officially released titles during the Atari 5200's short lifespan. Few of those, if any, were console exclusives. Most were arcade ports and available on other home systems of the time, including the Atari 2600. But you have to understand, the goal of the day was not original experiences. The goal was to bring the arcade experience home. And these games represented that one step closer to arcade accuracy. In my last 3D video, we discussed Defender, River Raid, and Pole Position. This time, we're gonna talk about some games I'm not so good at. But I'm gonna do my best, and we're gonna focus on the history of these games and the legacy they left behind. And stick around to the end. We've passed our 100 subscriber goal, and I've got an update on that GameSir Pocket Taco controller giveaway. Now, let's go play some games. First up, Galaxian. Galaxian was released in 1979 in Japan, then 1980 in the US. It's a fixed shooter developed by Namco as a response to the success of Space Invaders. You pilot the Galaxian, shooting down waves of enemy ships. Like Space Invaders before it, the ranks of enemy ships move side to side as they fire on you. Unlike Space Invaders, ships will regularly break formation and dive bomb you, adding a level of complexity to the formula. Despite that added complexity, the idea was to keep it simple. Namco wanted a game anyone could play. The directive handed down to designer Kazunori Swano was simple as best, along with an order to make the best post-Invaders game they could. With gameplay inspired as much by Star Wars as Space Invaders, Galaxian was a quick success, capturing arcade gamers' interests and quarters with its movement and multicolored sprites. Galaxian sold more than 50,000 cabinets by 1982. It was then ported to multiple home consoles, including both the Atari 2600 and 5200. The 5200 version was released in October of 1982, making it a launch title for the console. Galaxian is considered an all-time arcade classic. Unable to keep up with demand, Namco allowed other publishers like Taito, the creator of Space Invaders, to make their own versions. This included a crossover between Galaxian and Space Invaders that I would love to get my hands on. It also spawned sequels, remakes, remasters, and reissues for decades, but none quite as popular as Galaga, released in 1981. Galaga follows the same basic design and play loop, but improves on it in almost every way, resulting in it being one of the most successful arcade games of all time. But surprisingly, Galaxian's greatest legacy might not be in the software, but in the hardware. Galaxian's sprite rendering system allowed for improvements in graphics, speed, and scrolling backgrounds. This new hardware influenced the creation of Donkey Kong. The inability of any home consoles to run an accurate port of Donkey Kong supposedly led Nintendo to take it upon themselves and create the Famicom, better known in the States as the Nintendo Entertainment System. The video game industry owes a lot to Galaxian. Do you remember at the beginning of the video when I said there were few console exclusives on the Atari 5200? Well, I found one. This is Countermeasure. Released in the 5200 launch window of late 82, early 83, Countermeasure was intended to be for the 5200 what Combat was to the 2600, a war game. But that's pretty much where the similarities end. Combat was the original pack-in title for the Atari 2600. For many of us, it was our first taste of home gaming. It was a very simple two-player game where you and a friend faced off in a variety of military vehicles like tanks and planes. Beyond rudimentary by today's standards, I have a lot of fond memories playing Combat. Countermeasure is a single-player game where you pilot a slow-moving tank, a very, very slow-moving tank, through enemy territory, destroying missile silos and trying to prevent the launch of nuclear missiles that will destroy the world. Your goal was to destroy all the missile silos per stage with increasing difficulty. You also had the option to park at a silo and disarm the bomb by typing in a 3-letter code. You couldn't actually beat Countermeasure. The game didn't end. It just got harder and harder. Like in Missile Command before it, you can't win a nuclear war. You can just put off the inevitable. What can I say? It was the Cold War. We grew up assuming the world was going to end in nuclear fire. They taught us in elementary school the proper way to hide under your desk in case nuclear war broke out during class. Makes you wonder what those desks were made out of. Sales numbers are hard to find, so I'm honestly not sure how well this sold. But it had a sequel on the Atari 7800, so it must not have done too bad. I know I'm supposed to be celebrating the games here, but I really hate this one. It looks good, but it's slow, it's boring, it's hard to control, and in the short time I played, I never managed to stay alive long enough to die in a cool way. So I'm just going to toss up the "you failed to save the world" screen I found online and move on. Did you know that Super Breakout had a storyline? NASA Captain John Stewart Chang is returning home from a mission, low on life support, and encounters a seemingly endless rainbow. Come on. It's Pong Solitaire. It doesn't need a story. I understand why Atari had trouble letting go of Pong. The company was largely built off of the success of that one game and its variations. In 1976, Breakout was designed by Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, but really just Steve Wozniak, and soon after evolved into Super Breakout. Despite its obvious and important legacy, it was a questionable choice as a pack-in game for Atari's new Super System in 1982. It hardly shows off the 5200's graphical capabilities. On top of that, it's hard to play without a paddle, which the 5200 doesn't have. And even with a 9-pin adapter, all the paddle does is twitch a little. There is a very nice trackball available for the 5200, but one in working condition sells for well more than the console itself. Looks like I'm stuck with a classic analog joystick for now. Even with a working joystick, it's a bit janky. It just wasn't designed to be played this way. The idea is simple. Instead of bouncing the ball back and forth with your opponent like in Pong, you bounce the ball against tiles at the top of the screen. You have to destroy all the tiles without missing the balls as they bounce back at you. Simple, but it's a classic for a reason. The game is ported to multiple systems, including the Nintendo Game Boy and even modern smartphones and tablets. Captain John Stewart's endless battle against the Rainbow Force Field, as recorded by Kid Stuff Records in 1982, remains a fan-favorite game to this day, even if they don't know about the story. A couple of those were rough. I usually only try to make it through a stage or two. I'm not trying to get any high scores here. I just want to show you what the game looks like. I only need 2 or 3 minutes of footage, but today, that was a challenge. But what do you think? Did you like Galaxian as much as you liked Galaga? Were you any good at Countermeasure? Could you play Super Breakout without a paddle? And what would you like to see me cover next? Somebody's requested Vanguard, so I'll make sure and cover that one real soon. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, we have passed 100 subscribers, so thank you. I'll go ahead and start that contest in one of my videos next week. I'll probably use Gleam just to keep it simple. Leave it up for a couple weeks so everyone has a chance to enter, and that should take us past the end of the Kickstarter, so hopefully they'll start sending those out soon after. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, not just for the contest, but it does help the channel grow, and I'll see you next time.